So let's look at a couple of examples of how this electoral voting process works, not only in terms of how many votes in the Electoral College of states get, but also then how those votes get counted when it comes to electing the president. So let's keep this simpler. Our country has 50 states, but let's say we have a country with 4 states to make it easy. And I've just called those states North, East, South, and West. Let's complete the table for how many electors each of these states would get. Remember, the rule for senators is that each state gets 2 senators, so I can put 2 senators for each state in. And then states get a number of representatives based on a common number of people. And let's say for this country, each state gets a representative for 60,000 people. So if the state of North has 60,000 people exactly, they would get 1 representative. The state of East has 600,000. To figure out how many representatives they would get, you would just divide that population by 60,000. And you may remember this process from when we did apportionment. 600,000 divided by 60,000 would be 10 representatives for the state of East. We could do that same division to see that the state of South gets 2 representatives for 120,000 people, and the state of West gets 7 representatives for 420,000 people. So in terms of electors, the reason we were working with representatives and senators is that the number of electors each state gets is the sum of those representatives and senators. The state of North gets 3 electoral votes. The state of East gets 12 electoral votes because East had 10 representatives and 2 senators. The state of South with 2 of each gets 4 electoral votes, and the state of West gets 7 plus 2 or 9 electoral votes. So we now have the electoral votes that each state gets. Now let's look at the election itself. There are 2 candidates in this example for a president. Let's say the 2 candidates are Dene and Miho. Let's use the rule that most states use. 48 states say that a candidate that gets the candidate gets all of the electoral votes for the state if they win the popular vote for that state. Now it's the popular vote for that state. So we want to look at each state individually. So the state of North voted, 20,000 people voted for Dene, but 40,000 people voted for Miho. So Miho clearly has the most votes in the state. So Miho is going to get all of the electoral votes for the state of North. So what we're going to do is we go back up and we think, okay, the state of North had 3 electoral votes. All of them go to Miho. All 3 votes. If all 3 votes go to Miho, that means Dene gets none of them. All 3 votes go to Miho because Miho won the popular vote in the state of North. All right, the state of East. In the state of East, Dene wins more votes, 350,000 compared to Miho's 250,000. So when we look at assigning electoral votes for the state of East, all of them, 12 electoral votes the state of East had, go to Dene. All 12 go to Dene. So Miho gets none. And so I'm putting a dash there, but I could also put a 0. The slash is kind of representing they get none, but we could also just put zeros in there. So technically, it's an all or nothing when it comes to assigning the electoral votes for each individual state. And we'll do the same thing for South. South, Miho is winning with 70,000 votes. So all of South's electoral votes go to Miho. That means 0 go to Dene. And then finally for West, Dene is winning by just 20,000 votes. Dene has 220,000 compared to Miho's 200,000. So Dene's 9 votes all go to Dene. So state of West, 9 votes all go to Dene, that's what I should be saying. And so that means Miho gets 0. So when it comes to who wins the presidency, we count up the electoral votes for Dene, which is 21 votes, and we count it up for Miho, which is 7. And what we see is that Dene has clearly won the election. Clearly, Dene has won the Electoral College election. Now let's compare that with the popular vote. Because sometimes that is what sometimes people bring up is, will the electoral vote mirror the popular vote? Let's add the votes up for Dene and for Miho. Well, Dene, when we add them up, 20,000, 350,000, 50,000, and 220,000, that adds up to 640,000 votes. Miho's votes add up to 560,000. So the results do match up. Dene wins the popular vote as well as the Electoral College, but it's the Electoral College that actually means that Dene wins the presidency. Now, I do want to mention that even though these results line up and would actually, both the popular election votes for the election and the electoral votes for the election do give us the same result here, it's not the same result if you look at the percentages. Or at least the percentages differ, even though you have the same outcome. If we look at the total percentage of what Dene got 640,000 votes out of a total of 1,200,000. And if you were to actually calculate that percent by dividing these two values, you would find that Dene got 53% of the popular vote. If you look at it for the Electoral College, Dene got 21 votes out of a total of 28 votes. So Dene got 75% of the votes for the Electoral College. Notice the difference in those two percentages, that you don't have the same percentages happening. And part of that is because of this all or nothing idea. This all or nothing idea means that you may get a higher percentage related to the electoral votes going to a single candidate than you do for the popular vote. So that can mean that these two percentages, even though in this case we had the same candidate win both, can be different. Let's look at one more example. Here we have a country that has 3 states. So again, a hypothetical country. I've got the population of each state in the table here. And in this country, let's say that there's 1 representative for every 20,000 people. So in the state of Orange, that has 40,000 people, you would have 2 representatives. Again, just divide 40,000 by how many people are in each district, so 20,000 people. So you have 2 representatives. And of course, every state gets 2 senators, so 2 representatives and 2 senators make for 4 electors from the state of Orange. State of Green, 180,000 people. Dividing that by 20,000 means that I have 9 representatives in that state. Every state gets 2 senators, so 9 plus 2 is 11 electoral votes for president. The state of Magenta, 120,000 people, divided by 20,000 people for the group in a district. That would be 6 representatives, but every state gets 2 senators, so 6 plus 2 is 8 electors. So we have 4 and 11 and 8, so we have our electoral college. Now again, let's go to the election now. Let's say we have 2 candidates, alpha and beta this time. Let's use the same rules that most states use for assigning electoral votes. So we're going to look at each state individually and assign all of their electoral votes to whoever wins in just that state. So in the state of Orange alone, when you look at their votes, more people voted for beta. So all of the electors, those 4 electors from the state of Orange, all go to beta. So 4 votes go to beta, 0 go to alpha. If we then look at the state of Green, twice as many people voted for alpha, 120,000 compared to 60,000. So 11 votes are going to go to alpha. So beta gets 0. And then our third state, more people voted for beta. 20,000 more people voted for beta. So beta wins the popular vote, and they win all 8 electors. So 8 votes go to beta, 0 votes go to alpha. So when we add up the electoral votes for these 2 candidates, alpha gets 11 electoral votes, and beta gets 12. So beta has more electoral votes, so beta wins the presidency, wins the Electoral College, and therefore the presidency. When we look at the popular vote, though, so if I come back over and look at individual values for the popular vote, if I add up alpha's votes, 10,000, 120,000, 50,000, I get 180,000 votes for alpha. And then adding up beta's votes, 30,000, 60,000, and 70,000, that's 160,000. So in the popular vote, alpha actually has more votes. So alpha, if we were judging the election on the popular vote, wins the popular vote. But again, how presidential elections work in the United States is that by the Constitution, the winner will be who wins the majority of votes for the Electoral College. So here we have a situation where the popular vote and the Electoral College vote differ. And so this is a situation that many people have been concerned about for many, many years. In the history of our country, there have been 5 presidential elections in which the winner of the election was not the winner of the popular vote. It's happened 3 times in the 1800s, and it's happened twice in the 2000s. And therefore, there has been a lot of discussion and attempts to actually get rid of the Electoral College, or at least change it so the popular vote is what is being used more because of this discrepancy with the popular vote and the Electoral College. The trouble is, and why it hasn't happened, is that the Electoral College was established in the Constitution as the method of electing the president, and a change to a popular vote would require a constitutional amendment. And that's not so easy. Constitutional amendments require a supermajority vote, a supermajority approval, I should say. Supermajority is more than 50%, usually well over 50%. In particular, to propose a constitutional amendment, you need a 2/3 vote of both houses of Congress, or you need a 2/3 vote from the states. That 2/3 is 66.7%. So much more than 50%, much more than half of both houses of Congress and half of the states have to propose a constitutional amendment. And then any amendment that is proposed has to then be ratified by at least 75%, at least 3/4 of state legislatures. So it's not an easy task to create a constitutional amendment. Now, attempts have been made since the early 1800s to abolish the Electoral College. The closest that people have come to abolishing it was in the 1960s, and there was a push in Congress for a constitutional amendment to abolish the Electoral College and move to a popular vote. There were a lot of things that influenced that, and I actually have a podcast that I will link to in our D2L show that talks about the Electoral College, and in particular talks about what happened in the 1960s when Congress tried to get rid of it. But it didn't happen. It failed, or just kind of petered out, really. But what the most recent attempt has been is, instead of a constitutional amendment, what some states have done is they've entered into an agreement, what we call the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. And this is an agreement that some states have made among themselves, that they would instruct their electors to vote for the winner of the national popular vote instead of their state's popular vote during the Electoral College. And now, if enough states do this, if enough states specifically tell their electors to vote for the winner of the national popular vote instead of their state's popular vote, what would happen is eventually the national popular vote and the Electoral College vote would align. They would align, and so whoever wins the popular vote would also win the Electoral College vote. So this is an agreement among the states, because the Constitution says that the president has to be elected by the Electoral College. It doesn't tell us how the states have to tell their electors to vote. So this agreement would make it so that these states tell their electors to vote for the national popular vote, the winner of the national popular vote. Now, the way this compact works, though, is it's only going to go into effect until enough states have signed on that you would have this alignment happen. And so far, not enough states have signed on. Oregon is one of the states that have signed on, but so far, we still are under the number of states that it would be needed to make the Electoral College vote line up with the national popular vote. So this compact hasn't gone into effect. So states are currently still using the state's popular vote to direct the Electoral College votes from their state.